First off, thank you guys so much for all of the love on my last Berkeley video. It's really made me so happy how many people that it's reached and how many people have reached out to me, telling me how much it has helped them with a number of different things that has to do with either deciding between a master's program and just helping them with the application process for this specific program, which is amazing and it makes me really happy. So I wanted to do something special and I wanted to bring in some of my friends throughout the program that I ended up going the entirety of the program with and getting their feedback, because I know that it helps some of you out there to get more feedback when you're considering this, because it is a really big decision, and I just thought it would be fun to interview some other people and get their perspectives on things. And as a reminder, please go follow my Instagram account. I'm going to start getting much more active on there, and I'm going to start posting job postings and all different stuffs related to the tech industry and trying to help you either break into tech or excel your career. So please go follow me there. And of course, as always, make sure you subscribe to make sure that you get alerts on all my new videos. Let's get started.
Thank you guys for doing this. I feel like since I posted my first video, there's been a lot of people that have reached out to me and asked questions about how do you manage your time and how do you make friends in the program? And my answer is always that. I think I manage my time a lot better because we had friends. And I think my experience is just one experience in it all. So I wanted to get your guys' experience and ask you some of the questions about why you chose the program, what you liked about it, what you didn't. That way it might help some more people out there who are debating if they want to either go get their master's or work in data science, and is it worth it, all of those different things. Just like a reintroduction of myself, and I think you guys can just follow too and say where you worked before the program and then where you currently work, how long that you've been working and stuff too. So I'm Courtney. Reminder, I am about 5 years out of undergrad now, and I worked at Procter and Gamble before I joined Mids, and now I work at Amazon Web Services as a product manager on the sales insights and analytics team. So Sunny, you can go ahead.
I think 7, 8 years. I lost track out of undergrad now. I went to University of Washington. My background is in finance and accounting, and that's how I started with Deloitte. I was part of this, a niche tax team when I first started this program. I've always had kind of interest in data analytics. And the more I spent time in the professional setting, I realized, hey, I actually need to get a further degree in data. And that's why I started Mids. And that was kind of like fourth year into working at Deloitte. And then in the middle of Mids program, I actually switched to Airbnb as like a senior analyst there. And I spent about a year and a half or so. Right around I was graduating Mids program, I got lucky and I joined data science team at Microsoft. So I've been there for about eight months or so. And I feel super lucky to be kind of graduating the program with a more aligned with data science right now.
Awesome, Julian.
Cool. Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Julian. It's funny, my story actually really mirrors Sunny. I just realized that we were actually both at Deloitte together, so I'm also a Deloitter.
Oh yeah.
That's where I started my career out of college, and I started the program about 3 years into my work experience and career. And very similar to Sunny, I kind of felt a little bit like an empty suit at times, as they call it. So I was really craving those more technical, tangible skills. And so, yeah, I was working at Deloitte, and then last October, so about 4.5 years into my career, I got a job at Google. So that's where I'm currently at today, working as a controls test engineer. So definitely a very positive experience.
Yeah. No, I think that's one of the cool parts about just all of us and our little study group of Mids is that everyone, I think, made a career shift during it. And so that's one thing that I touched on in my previous video, is that for me, that's one of the big payoffs when I look back at it, because I wanted to make that shift and I think it made that happen. So, and I think you guys are testaments to that too. I wanted to ask, was there anything before joining the program? I guess one, did you guys apply anywhere else? And two, was there any hesitation before joining the program that you second guessed maybe doing it?
I can maybe go first.
Yeah.
I had applied to a lot of other places, but also in kind of different application cycles, just because I was applying to different types of programs, I think throughout the span of maybe a year or so. But I didn't apply to any other master's degrees. So that was definitely, you know, it really worked out well. But also definitely had a lot of hesitations. But I think that would probably be the case with any master's degree. You know, most MBA or master's program, it's probably going to be a move away from your home or where you're currently living. You might have to quit your job or put your job on hold. So I think that is just a function of most kind of graduate degree programs. But with mids, I think it was more geared towards, you know, the program obviously being remote. I think that was the biggest kind of point of caution. But as we all learned, that was nothing major.
Yeah, totally. I echo what Julian said. I think for me, I applied, I want to say 4 different programs. They were all a little different. So one was obviously more into information systems. So there was like UW master's program in information system was part of the business school. I applied to other sort of East Coast schools. I remember applying to like business intelligence program or something, business analytics actually, at it was Cornell, there was Johns Hopkins program, and I applied almost at the same time. So it was a little bit different from how Julian approached it. I think I applied like fall of one year, and then I basically heard back the following spring or something like that. The most I think benefit of MIDS program to me was the fact that it was remote, and then I'm able to keep my job at the same time. Like financial piece of it was a very important aspect of deciding to go to a master's program. Like it's not cheap, everybody knows that. And for me, being able to actually work at the same time and kind of study in the evening remotely was the biggest factor. And it was around the time that COVID hit, so everybody was already remote. And the fact that, hey, I'm able to juggle like work and study at the same time and kind of be flexible without having to like commute to school or move to somewhere across the country or anything like that. That was like the biggest factor, most important factor for me. And like Julian mentioned, yes, there was a hesitation. I remember like the first quarter into the program, and I was like, am I doing the right thing? Like I'm going to bed like midnight, like almost like 2 a.m. all of a sudden, which is never, something I haven't had to do for a long period of time. And just like kind of getting that routine back of like, okay, I have school, I work, but also I have school to manage. And obviously, I don't want to half-ass it. Like I want to make sure that I do it the right way. That was definitely something like that required an adjustment early on. But I stuck through it, and I'm glad I did, because it definitely paid off at the end.
Yeah, I think if a fun fact about me too, which I don't know if you guys know this, is just about a year before, I actually applied to MIT's data analytics program. So I had thought about it before, and I didn't get into MIT. And I was just like, I don't even know what I'm doing. And I don't even know what I'm applying, what I'm doing. I just wanted out of my current job so bad that I'm like, I wanted to go back to school again and for sure do that. But that was in person. And that was one of my things too, is that the remote part of it was really nice, because I didn't want to uproot my life. And I've spoken on this before, but there was no way for me to live my lifestyle and go to school if I didn't have a working job as well. So I made sure that was just an option, because for me, there was really no other choice. But yeah, so I think going into the program, one of the questions that I get all the time is, so you're in your first class. The first class is 201 or no, 200. And it's a Python class paired with 201, which is like research design. And you come in, and the Python class can be a bit hard, especially as the first class. It really ramps up. And at our time, there's no ChatGPT to help you. It's not around yet. So I found that class pretty difficult. And people ask me all the time with the remote program, how did you make friends? So I know the story, but I want to get from your perspective, and I think it would be nice for others to hear, is how important do you think the relationships you made in this program were early on, and how did you even go about that? Because I know so many people are, it can be cringy to reach out to people. It can be awkward. So what would you say for going to the program, the bonus was of having friends early on, and how did that even happen for all of us?
Yeah, I can start with this one, and I think, Julian obviously can back me up on this. So I remember 200 Python class. Everybody's new. I don't know anybody, right? Like we show up, they're doing intros, like, hey, just give a elevator pitch of who you are, where you at, what do you do, all that stuff. And it's like 20, 30 people or something like that in that intro. And I don't know anybody in this class. And you just have to reach out. Like I remember just like randomly pinging people and be like, hey, do you want to just pair up and do this,
Yep.
homework together? And some of those group stick, like us, obviously we managed to kind of like organically grow as a team and really kind of learn from each other. But there are other teams or other pairs that just don't work out, right? Like, and that's okay. Like I remember, I started, kind of working with somebody, but the time zone was off. Like the person was super busy during the day, where I had some more time during the day to meet and kind of study together. It just like wasn't working out, schedule wise. So I remember, okay, that's not something I'm looking for. And it happens to be that Julian was also looking for some study buddy, like homework, project team together. And that's how I ended up like connecting with Julian. Obviously, we got to know that he was working at Deloitte. I was also at Deloitte, that, we had something common to speak off of. So I think just to wrap up, like really have to reach out to people. Yes, like you said, it can be cringy. It can be like a little bit awkward, especially it being remote. But it's just like how maybe you do it at work. You just, randomly ping somebody, be like, hey, you want to grab a coffee? Something similar to that, right? Something along the lines of like, hey, I'm interested in doing XYZ. Would you like to kind of hop on a call together? Just I think making that effort, being proactive goes a long
Yeah,
way.
definitely. I think it's funny too. I remember sitting there first class, and when it comes to group assignments, I remember thinking, oh, I wonder how on it people are. Like, I don't want to be too
Yeah.
aggressive and be the weird person asking people.
Yeah.
But as soon as I waited a little bit and then I started asking people, everyone was in groups. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so
Oh
everyone's
no.
doing this. Like, don't feel weird about it because
Right.
everyone is on it.
Right.
And yeah, I think my first group was me, Julian, and our friend Raymond. And he couldn't be here on video tonight, but I think we kind of just merged as a group moving forward. We enjoyed each other the first step, and then we planned classes and did pretty much the whole program together. But Julian, what's your take?
Yeah, I think that's all right on point. The only thing I'd add is that, it's such a cool program, and that means that you have really bright people in it who are already, working at the largest companies, working on the coolest things. And so what I thought was really interesting is kind of really paying attention to what questions people are asking in class. And you can kind of gauge, who's interested in what are they working on in their day-to-day jobs. And the likelihood is pretty high that there are going to be some people who are interested in what you're interested in. And so I feel like that's a great kind of medium to meet people.
Yeah, so true. And I think too, like you have to take a step back and remember that everyone has committed their next 2 years or a year, whatever path they take it at, to learn more of all of this data science stuff, that they have that much of an interest in it. They're choosing to do it. Everyone will be willing to talk about themselves, and they'll be willing to talk about their work in data science. So it's like everyone's looking for a friend. So, just, reach out and get that started. I think too, one thing I just want to touch on, and I don't know if I even did in my last video, but of course, everyone has different interests and different classes in the programs, but there's usually a few five-ish classes that everyone usually tries to take once it gets to the advanced classes. And everyone's schedule is a bit different, but how important or how much of a role did it play in your guys' time in the program doing the classes together? Because I know people will, there's a trade-off between making sure that you and all of your friends or your study buddies kind of do the same classes, which you don't need to do. But in my experience, we kind of all took the same track of classes up until the end. And I thought it made a huge difference because we had homeworks to work on together. We could have study groups, discussions, and even if we were in different sections, we were still in the same class. So do you guys think that, like, how important do you think that is? And would you advise for it? Or I guess at what stage would you advise against it too? But for me, I thought that was a huge role And I still got the best experience that I wanted out of the program, but we did do every class together.
Yeah. I feel like at the end of the day, you have to do what you have to do kind of thing. If there's a class you really want to take, you should probably do that. But I guess from our experience, we learned that if you surround yourself with, people you get along with well, chances are those classes are going to align pretty well. And it really does make all the difference in the world. I think there were like a handful of classes that we each maybe took alone or were in different sections even. And I do think it definitely is a bit, you're definitely very isolated when you do that. So I think that plays a lot of weight when you're going to pick your classes.
Yeah, totally agree. I think it's definitely worth, grouping with close friends. It doesn't have to be like 2, 3 friends. It could have like multiple friends, right? It could be like 5, 10-ish friends that you know very well. And it's very likely that you're gonna have an overlap with those folks later down the line. I think the most important thing to me, at least, is that yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do, but also at the same time, the classes itself are very much aligned. Like at the end of the day, you kind of come together because you do one giant project together at the end of the term. And what you learn from each of those classes, there's gonna be some sort of an overlap. Like you are kind of working on or trying to kind of develop same skills or similar skills, right? Maybe not necessarily the same skills, but I think the bottom line is, yeah, you might be taking different classes, but at the end of the day, you're kind of like putting them together in one one project together. I think that's what's most important.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
all of this with the caveat that assuming you can get into the same class, the rabbit hole of registration, right?
Oh my God, yes.
I know. Registration, I had a good experience besides one time where I accidentally registered for the wrong class, I think. But I actually met with someone the other day who was in mids, and she took some waivers and got ahead, and she's like, I honestly regret it just because I am now in less credit hours trying to get these higher level classes, and it's not working out in my favor. So I will say I'm happy that I didn't rush it too much or like try to take all these classes at once. And I would take the hard classes one at a time. And so did all of us. And I think it was honestly better because we were usually set up for success when it came to registration for the most part until it got to some of the harder classes. So that's a whole nother beast. I think you get crazy registration at any school that you go to. I've yet to hear a process that's smooth. But going into classes, because this is something that I haven't touched on at all yet, and I've had people ask. I want to go through and hear everyone's. We'll start with the bad first. What is everyone's, I guess, hardest and least favorite? Doesn't always go hand in hand, but I guess hardest class in the program and then least favorite class in the program, and why. I could kick it off with my hardest program in the class was 203, which is the third class you have to take. It's probability theory statistics. I've liked the class, so it's not my least favorite, but it was very hard. And there's 2 exams, which made it even harder. I think when there's exams and not projects, and when there's no coding until the end, it was hard. You're writing proofs again, which I hadn't done since like high school because I took calculus in high school. And so this was all very removed from me. And so the learning curve of ramping up onto that was very tough. I also didn't do stats in my everyday job, and I've never really done probability theory like that. So that to me was hard, very hard. A lot of late nights. And yeah, I think my least favorite class, and honestly, not that I disliked it. I think I just could have taken a waiver out of it, was probably 205, which is it data engineering?
Engineering,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't because that was honestly probably one of the best teachers in the program that I had, but just the class itself, I think I could have taken a waiver out of it. It's SQL heavy and a bit of just the inner workings of databases, which I don't find the engineering side of data science too, or an analytics too interesting. So for no other reason than it just wasn't really that, that much learning for me.
Yeah, I would also definitely say 203. Like we had, as you mentioned, 2 exams that were very theoretical. And I personally found that so difficult to study for and just wrap my head around all of these, various assumptions for different theories. And yeah, I can't recall much of that to this day. But what I really enjoyed was the R, like as Courtney mentioned later on, when you get to actually do hands-on statistical work, you get to write a few papers. I thought that was actually really fun. Writing a nice paper in latex markdown, it's actually really fun to work on. But yeah, all of those theories with, yeah, let's not get into it, but it's definitely tough, especially if you pair it with 205, which I don't think is the most challenging course, but it is very time consuming. I remember the async videos being, 30 minutes long on some occasion. And if you don't know, you have multiple async videos every week. So it definitely really adds up.
Yeah, that's good because no, Julian was the only one who took 203 paired with the class. Me and Sunny did not. We took it alone, like the smart we are.
Oh man, yeah, I don't know how you paired it up with another class, to be honest. I feel like that alone, it's like also very early on in your mid's life that you like that's not expected, and you're like, all right, you're going literally heads down with just math. I remember just I think up until midterm or something like that. I remember like, am I in math class? Like what is this? But yeah, I mean, I wanted to be creative and say something else in terms of the most difficult class, but I honestly can't think of anything else but 203. Like it was really difficult, kind of like getting your heads wrapped around, which is all like the statistics theory. That I think was a kind of experience, to be honest. Yeah, and like I said, like there's exams which you don't normally don't get exams in its program. It's more, mostly like the async, maybe quizzes, but most importantly projects. But this one has two exams. I remember, so that was definitely different. But I don't know. I can't really name my least favorite class. I mean, if I have to name one, and this is really on me than anybody else, but I wish I had spent more time on data visualization class. I paired it with capstone, so the very last course, or last class of the whole program. And I just didn't spend enough time on data visualization, and I feel like I just kind of just went through it. I just like let it do its course. So it's kind of, I wish it's more out of regret rather than like the content not being fun or anything like that. Yeah.
Yep. I have, just since we're on that topic, I have my biggest regret in mids was, we're spending all this money and time, and I also try not to beat myself too much up for it because I used to feel this guilt if I was cutting corners in the program. And I think people probably feel that regardless, but I felt this guilt, like I'm spending all this money and I'm taking this class and I'm just kind of going through the motions. But I took W241, which is experiments in causal inference, with capstone as well. We all really wanted to graduate and walk and go to Berkeley and do everything. And that class, it's a lot of people's favorite classes, and it was an amazing professor, but I feel like I kind of went through the motions in it. And that's my one regret, is I wish that I would have just like stayed strong to the end and really gave a lot of time into that. But pairing it with capstone is tough because that takes up a lot of your time, and at that point you're ready to just be done with the program.
Oh yeah, especially towards the end, you're like, I'm so close, like I'm near the corner. Let's just get through it. Yeah, I think that's how I felt about 209, the visualization class. My other regret, if I have to say it, is we get like 2 to 3 week break, sometimes less, right? Like between terms. I wish I utilized it better, to be honest, because I'm so busy, like catching up with work, catching up with friends and family, right? Like you've just kind of been gone for like the last, I don't know, 10, 12 weeks or something like that. That I feel like I'm busy kind of socializing with people that I haven't caught up. But I just wish that I had more systematic way of like catching up and reviewing some of the things that I've learned, and kind of previewing for the next quarter or something like that. Just be a better student. But I don't think I had that chance, or gave it all my best, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the same. When people would time up their breaks with like 2 weeks off work or a week off work, I remember being like, why did I not do that? It's right there for
Yeah.
you to plan out. Why did I not do
Oh,
this? And then I was doing school on vacations. Like, why?
oh my gosh,
Why did I
yes.
do
That's
this?
another thing. Yes.
So bad. Julian, do you have any regrets throughout?
My regret is kind of has a blessing in disguise too. Like I took 205 and 203 together, which are really time consuming. And the blessing in disguise though was I got to take 207 on its own, when most
Yeah.
people were taking that with stats. And I personally really loved that because I was able to dive super deep. I remember like I bought the textbook for the course, and I would literally just go through the textbook and whip up code just personally because I thought it was the coolest thing in the world to watch a TensorFlow model train to predict the color of like an iris flower. For those of you who
Yeah.
don't know, that's like intro to ML data set. But
Yeah.
yeah, that I
I
would say is a regret, but
Yeah. And 207 is the first like intro to ML class. And
yeah.
honestly, I think that's a good move on your part too. Not that like just juggling two classes, it is always you're dedicating some of your time to one and some of your time to the other. And I do think that intro to ML class is really the basis of a lot that comes, like just understanding, everything that has to do with modeling. And I wish that I would have spent more time with that as it went on because it's so funny because I was always waiting for something to click in the program, and I was just studying for some data science interviews the other day, and I reread some of the basics of data science, and it wasn't until I read some of it that it all just kind of clicked in my head, and I'm like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, like all this stuff is somehow clicking, and it's just funny because I'm like, I should have spent more time in the program, really, really diving deep, but it's so hard when you're working and doing school at the same time. It's really challenging to go as deep as you'd really want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
especially now that you mentioned textbook, Julian. Like I mean, I was one of those ambitious student in the beginning where I bought all the suggested textbooks, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna read this. I'm like, my bookcase is gonna be just full of all these machine learning, data science books or whatever. I think I didn't touch a lot of them.
I have so many decorative. I have Introduction to Statistical Learning. I have
Yeah,
machine
me
learning with
too.
Python. They're all
It's good
just cool. I
function.
want people to walk in my room and be like, wow, she's smart,
Yeah.
even though I
Yeah.
haven't opened one of them.
I also have I won't mention what class it is, but I remember there was like a textbook bundle that was in the syllabus that we had to purchase. And I was so pissed because I spent money on this bundle, and one of the books or PDFs in it was completely in Spanish. Money on the Spanish textbook.
Uh,
Oh my gosh.
Classic. Yeah, you heard it here first. All the textbooks can also be found online. Like you can find all of them as PDFs. Do not need to buy unless you want nice decor. So, Julian, at least that will look nice.
Yeah.
Okay, and then on the flip side, what about everyone's favorite class? Mine, I would say I really did enjoy Capstone. But it's not much of a class. It's kind of just putting all of your learnings into a final project. But my favorite class, other than that, was 266, I think, which is the natural language processing with deep learning. I really liked it because it had a great mix of async and homeworks that were Jupyter notebooks and different assignments. And then at the same time, they had different sessions where you could practice reading research papers, and it was pretty research paper heavy as well. And I really enjoyed getting to learn that. And the final project is essentially you doing some large language modeling, but then putting it into a research paper format. And I just really liked that part of it because I feel like you're not forced to do that until you get to that class, reading the research papers and actually staying on top of what's new. And in parallel to being just in this time where LLMs and Gen AI is booming, I really like that class a lot.
Yeah, me too. I would definitely in 266 it's almost, I would say, unanimously a must take course within the program now, especially, as you said, given where AI is, and that this kind of AI hype aligned pretty nicely to our timeline in the course. But I would go back to 207 for me, just because we learned, and covered so many different machine learning algorithms. Like you start off with very simple regression, and then you go over unsupervised techniques, which was really interesting. You cover some deep learning. So I thought that was really a really nice kind of intro and overarching course. And I think it does really prepare you well for 266 to kind of have that intuition of, what a transformer might look like and how to use it. So I did really enjoy that one.
Yeah, I did enjoy 266 a lot. I'm actively using some of the skills that I've learned from 266, like, doing sentiment analysis with languages, like large language models, like that was very useful. But my favorite class was honestly 261, the machine learning at scale. I think that's the name of the class. Not only the instructor was great, but I think the content itself was so rich. I don't think I'm necessarily like actively using them on a day-to-day basis, but the foundation of like the data storage, the pipeline, like how that's all connected all the way to like you actually creating the machine learning model with large data. I think that's something that, as a data scientist, you use all the time. Like I just can't, just forget everything, that was taught in that class because it's so important. And even like the platform like Databricks, like I actively use it at work. So that's something that I always kind of go back some of my notes when I forget it. So yeah, that's kind of my favorite class, honestly.
Yeah, I will say, I echo that. The instructor is amazing. We had Vinny, and he is one of the best in the entire program. And I will say that I see now, I talk to scientists on my team, and only one person uses Spark, which is what the entire class is basically built off of. And people are now learning it. So it's almost like a new wave a bit. And these are scientists that have been, research and data scientists for a while now, and they're wanting to learn Spark because it is just the most efficient for actually speeding things up. And so the fact that I know Spark has been kind of like, oh my gosh, yeah, you took an entire class with Spark. I think it's just definitely a leg up to know it. At least I've seen it AWS with really experienced scientists, which I like, having that under my belt that, oh yeah, we use Spark for our capstone too. So it's kind of just like second nature for us. And I think it's a very valuable skill to have. Okay. Moving on a bit. Coming into now, you guys, Julian, you work at Google, and Sunny, you work at Microsoft. Do you, in the roles that you're in now, I guess, do you think that mids, like how much do you think mids actually played a role in getting the job that you have now? And do you see the things that you've learned in mids pay off in your job? And you can also share, like, if you, like, because I don't think, Sunny, you do work in data science directly. Julian, you do some, but not a direct data scientist. I'm not a direct data scientist. So something that I've seen is like, I am struggling a bit to shift to roles directly in data science because I don't have experience before. So I guess I just kind of want to cover like how well do you think it was in shifting to the role you either wanted or like data science in general?
Yeah, at least from my perspective, it is kind of the main reason how I got my role. Actually, an alumni of the program posted a job kind of posting on LinkedIn, and that's how I came about the role. And I just kind of connected with him offline, and then was very lucky to get through the interview stages and ultimately get the offer. But yeah, it's pretty funny at all these big companies like Microsoft, I'm sure too, Sunny, but I know Google for sure. There is a large mids community, so that's always pretty helpful to reach out there. And then the second question, it's definitely helped me in my day to day. I'm not a data scientist, but I can pretty much speak the same language, so it's super helpful when interacting with them to kind of know what they're working on, to kind of be able to speak that language, to be able to ask intelligent questions about it. And then with Microsoft, I'm sure too, but at Google especially, we're trying to constantly improve models. So my work kind of touches some of that adjacently. So just being able to understand, what the heck is going on, the importance of building a model, the whole life cycle, like the importance of data sets and how you treat those and different model architectures, I think is really invaluable. And a lot of the current data scientists are, not to say they're not well versed, but they haven't had the opportunity like we had to really have a structured learning environment where this was taught to them. So I think that is a big advantage for us.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. I think I wouldn't have gotten this job if it wasn't for the mids. I think yes, I got a referral through a person that I met prior to mids. So I knew this person, from my previous accounting and finance experience. And that's how I got connected. But, at the end of the day, I was in this program. I was learning a ton about just data science and kind of what's the recent, AI, generative AI, all these transformer model thing. Like if I didn't have that knowledge, or we're talking, if I wasn't talking to folks that are already in the industry doing these, things, I don't think I would have gotten this job. Like I gave 100% of the reasons why I landed on this, data science job at Microsoft to mids. Like I think that's all I can say. I mean, obviously, my experience prior to mids program, all the Deloitte, Airbnb, all that experience obviously played a factor, right? I'm not gonna say like I'm able to actually understand the business terms and now the data science, more the data term, like the technical terms now. Therefore, I'm able to like what Julian said, be well versed in that area. But if it wasn't mids program, like I wouldn't have known any of the things that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I think too, I've seen, and I second that. I think I got my job even just having like Berkeley on the resume, I think gave me a leg up. And I actually saw my feedback when I got my AWS job when first getting into the program, and they let some of the things slide for me because they knew I was in this program and I would be learning and actively learning. So that was something where I'm like, oh wow, I really saw them take the degree and want to learn into account for that. And I will say something that I've been blown away by with the program is the network after the fact. And that was one of my biggest concerns was with an online program. I thought, oh no, I'm not going to get all the interaction like I would in an MBA program or an in-person master's program. But the network is amazing. There are people from any and every company that you could imagine that are willing to give referrals, that are willing to prep you for interviews, that are willing to help you out, chat. It has been really so amazing. And it's just a nice comfort blanket knowing that like that $80,000 plus that I spent, if something were to happen tomorrow for a job, not to say that I could instantly get a job, but there's such a support system around me that I think would help me out and lift me up from that. So I think that has been something that has really shocked me with just how amazing it has been, especially from a virtual program.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think we actually do have someone working at some industry, some most random industry, right? At a most random company. Like actually we do think we have such a wide spread of professionals just existing everywhere. That if you want to hit up somebody, be like, hey, I'm interested in this healthcare company startup. Like, does anybody know anybody? There's always someone that you could get connected to through mids, like the Slack channels and stuff like that. So it's wild. It's wild how big this community is.
Yeah. And even that, it also is applicable across the entire career spectrum. You have pretty close to early career people, and then next thing you know, you're in class with a machine learning director at company whatever. So that I feel like is really valuable as well.
Yeah, definitely. And there's the amount of people that you meet, it's so diverse. Like I think I was in class with 3 separate doctors, and it was so interesting to pick their brain and hear why you're a doctor, why do you want to come to mids? And it's crazy that you just realize this whole AI push has just completely exploded in every single industry, and people are dying to learn more, to come to Berkeley to do this program. And I think it really attracts top-notch talent like we've talked about, which has been great. I think, okay, to wrap it up, we can do some final statements, but I think the burning question that everyone wants to know is, was it worth it? And would you do it again? And if there's anything negative as well that you're like, the one thing that kind of like meh is this, which might be cost for everyone. But if there's another thing, one of my things, for example, was I don't mind now that it was an online program, but anytime someone in person asked me if it was online, it makes me cringe a little. Like I wish that I could say it was in person, and I'm like, that might be a shallow, like, but I can't lie. That's sometimes like how I feel. But at the end of the day, my response, and most people probably have seen it in my last video, is that I would 100% do it again. Like for the sheer fact that it got me my job today. I didn't have many connections in the tech industry, or and I didn't really have much room to do data science skills and learn that way. And the name brand of Berkeley, I think, is pretty invaluable. So for me, completely worth it. Made friends, met you guys, and I just think overall, I got mostly every single thing that I wanted out of a graduate degree. So
Yeah, I agree. It was definitely worth it. It might also be a little bit easier for me to say because I got a job that I really wanted, and I'm super happy with that. I think this also goes back a little bit to the question of how would you get over those kind of concerns before going into the program? And the way I did it for me and how I know I would do it again is because obviously the tuition is very expensive, like any master's program. So I think what you have to do is you have to look at the career outcomes of students. You know, a lot of these different programs publish career reports, career outcome, employment reports, I think they call it. And then, ask yourself if you could see yourself in a role similar to that. And I think if the answer is yes, then it might almost be a no-brainer, or at least, pretty comforting that this is probably a good career move, especially if those future potential roles or where people go on to work, if, the compensation justifies the initial investment of the tuition, right?
yeah.
It is a commitment. I do know a couple folks who started in the beginning and decide to drop off, and I think for right reasons, right? I think it makes sense for them, or it didn't make sense for them to continue. But I wish if I were to do it, if I was given a chance to do it all over again, I would. And I would tell myself to kind of trust the process a little bit. I think the whhole time, every single quarter when I'm paying the tuition, I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Like I always had this doubt, right? That, hey, so is this the right move? Like, are you making the right investment? Because there's a lot of money. And I wish I could tell myself that, hey, it's okay. Like it's going to work out at the end. And obviously it doesn't mean that I just, sit there and let it do its thing. But obviously, you have to meet people, you have to network, you have to put all your 100% into each class, but just trust the process that it's going to work out. That's kind of what I would tell myself if I were to do this all over again.
Yeah, I think too, I talked to someone the other day and she had expressed the same thing. She's spending so much money. And for me, I said, and part of my whole shtick is that I'm a first gen college student, and it takes external mentors and looking for other people that are in an industry and all this stuff. And to me, the more I think about the money spent, it is stressful, of course, but to me, the ROI isn't just money in, money out. It gave me, everything else outside of that I wanted. Confidence, this, being able to walk into a room or a conversation around data science and not have a fear of, do I know as much as someone? It's like that part of it. And then also the ability to be involved in the university community. Like I'm a TA now for 2 different classes. I've always wanted to teach. I've always wanted to help in that sense. And that part to me those are also parts to put into an ROI, is the feeling you get, how confident you are, other avenues of passions that might come of it. So I urge people to, if you're really stressed, calm down and just try to remember what you're doing this for in the first place, and just be confident enough to know that it'll work out in that way.
And I think one more thing that I would say is, I think the overwhelming consensus amongst alumni is that they would do it again. And I think you can tell that by looking at the demand for MIDS for Life. So this is a program where you can essentially continue taking classes. And so a lot of alumni and students are super interested in that. I know we probably all are. I'm dying to see, what we get access to. And continue with that.
Yeah, definitely. I put that as one of my positives in my video because I don't think a lot of programs really do that. Also, people are so willing to still like share materials and different things like that. Like it's a very open forum for like once you've spent all the money, no one's going to block you out from the learnings and the connections and stuff. Like the alumni network is very, very strong, and very welcoming. So yeah, that's a good point. I'm excited for Mids for Life too, and just to see like the updated content and all of that stuff. Okay. Well, I think we're coming on like an hour now. So thank you guys for joining. I'm so happy that you were able to come and get on the video. And I'm sure that people will just find comfort in this. I know I've gotten a lot of people to reach out. Just, you know, some people are alone out there and they just want some validation that what they're doing is the right decision or isn't. And so I think just hearing other people's perspectives and getting honest opinions outside of, you know, a forum hosted by Berkeley or something like that is always helpful. And it was only right to do it with you guys who, you know, we took the entire program together. So hopefully encourage some people out there too to reach out to people, make friends. It makes your life so much easier, it makes time management so much easier, because there's going to be times where you have a life going on and you're not going to be able to stay up all night doing homework. So find some lifelines.
Important priorities.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap. Thank you guys for coming and watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing from Sunny and Julian. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can always talk to me on LinkedIn, follow my Instagram page, or just subscribe here for more videos. And I'll put their LinkedIn accounts right here. That way you can go follow them on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, I'm sure they'd be fine if you reach out to them directly as well. Thanks for watching, and let me know any feedback in the comments and if you'd like to see any more people be interviewed. Bye, guys.